Yeah, yeah, I really like that you're honoring him in that way, and that does sound very, I don't know, sounds like it's more like things to me that are more true or more real uh, can sort of apply to different fields. Like you were saying, it sort of opened you up to like other traditions and things. That sounds very useful and like it has a good grounding in truth.
Yeah, and like like you were saying, well, maybe not exactly like you were saying, but you were saying you were raised sort of Protestant Christian. I was raised Catholic, and we went to mass on Sunday. When I was a kid, we went very often. As the family got older, it sort of became more of a holiday thing. But the mass never felt living to me. It always felt performative.
Ah,
And then and so I went to college. I moved out. I stopped attending church as much. And about a decade after college, I met Malidoma and I was working with him. And then I don't know, a year or two after sort of my peak involvement with him, I ended up going back to church for just to see. Just I was like, it's been a long time. Like I feel a calling to return to, the mother church, the Catholic Church. And I went to a mass and I had a very different experience of what was happening there and the sort of space that was available of you're performing communion, you're communing with the divine, and some of the symbology and the elements of the mass ritual spoke to me in a way that I had never experienced before. So that's I guess one example of like I wouldn't have expected that on paper because
yeah.
we think of like, oh well, the Christianity and the indigenous, you know uh, sort of animistic, shamanistic worldview. They're very separate. They're opposites. They're different. They sort of look down on each other. There's sort of a war there, and in our heads. But in my experience, it was one was returned to life by the other, and not that I go to church that often. Still, I could probably do better at that. Um, but I don't know, something opened for me there, so I just wanted to kind of touch on that too.
No, no, that's great. Yeah, I remember you telling me about that, and I'm so glad you brought that up. To me, that's such a I'd like to go into that more. It's funny you say that so even as a young kid, like mass was sort of performative. It was just sort of actions. It didn't feel like there was real symbolism kind of coming through.
I think because I don't want to be too disrespectful of what the priest may have been attempting when of my diocese when I was a child,
Mm,
or what the other people in the church were feeling internally, because I don't know what that was. But I
mm,
know for me, church, when I was a kid, church was a place to go and be quiet and be kind of bored and read books about Joseph and the coat of many colors and Jesus and the sheep and Noah and the flood and like all the little Bible stories. So I'm doing the proper things. They had a room in the back that if you were crying, you would take the kids to cry so they wouldn't disturb the space. And
yeah.
um the elements of, I don't know, the way the churches can be structured with the seating and the mass, um, with the cross in the front above, and with the priest sort of performing the ritual up front in front of the people. Traditionally, I guess before Vatican II, he would have his back to the people and would also be facing up. I never experienced that. I think that was before my time. But there's still this element of bringing the sacred down into, the bread and the wine, and then having that serve as the vessel of communion, and being able to sort of read that structure as an adult and see what it was pointing to, um, because of my having been in other types of ritual that were very alive and had the energy kind of running through them, the emotions. I don't know if I want to call them emotion. They
Mm,
sort of like the energy that runs our emotions was in the space, and then that would
mm,
help the emotional run in my system. But it wasn't
mm.
just the emotions in the space. Like it was, I would say it's something different.
Mm,
And then to be able to look for that in the Catholic Mass
mm,
and not intellectually, but just kind of feel my way into it,
hmm.
feel into the symbols and the actions involved. It was like, oh, I see something beautiful here, you know.
Do you think it gave you so the African ritual experience gave you new perspective that you brought to Mass after that?
Maybe partially, although I think also, trying to think of a good metaphor for this because I don't know how to describe it. I guess it's like if you try and lift something heavy, but you've never been to the gym, you can't really pick it up. But once you've been exercising, then you can pick something up. And that's not to say that one is heavy and one is light. I don't mean to make that comparison. That could be the misinterpretation.
Mm.
But there was something about engaging in the rituals that Malidoma brought that gave me a language or gave me a capacity to approach Mass in a way that was probably more the way it's intended to be, rather than just the way that I grew up thinking of it.
Yeah,
So it kind of opened my eyes, and then once I was in there, I could kind of see it a little bit better. Um, but it wasn't like a intellectual orientation. I wasn't like,
yeah,
yes, I see. I'm analyzing the Bible and the cup and plate with the bread, and it
yeah,
means these things. It's just like it came more from here than from up here.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
That makes sense to me.